with his presence here this evening. I also want to remind our listeners that we are also graced by the presence of some members of the ITV crew, and they'll be filming this presentation by Moulana Ihsaan Hendricks, so we extend to them too a very warm welcome this evening. Moulana, assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu, Mr. Jamil, and to all the listeners of Radio Voice of the Cape this evening, fellow South Africans and the viewers of ITV.
Moulana, now we do know tomorrow, the 15th of May, the catastrophe, Al-Nakbah, for us as Muslims in particular, a day of concern, a day where we have to reflect, and particularly a day of reflection and commemorating with the Palestinian people. You've been dealing with the history of Palestine, and I'm again urging particularly our young listeners to sit very close to the radio here this evening. So Moulana, I'm going to leave it to you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Absolutely, Mr. Jamil, and to the listeners of Radio Voice of the Cape and the viewers of ITV, let me start off and say that the 15th of May is not merely a painful date to remember for the Muslim community, but indeed our message here this evening is again an appeal to humanity to understand what happened to the Palestinian people remains a crime against humanity, and not particularly that it was a crime against the Muslim people of Palestine. I need to be very clear about this, because in Palestine there are Jewish people who live in Palestine, there are Christian people who live in Palestine, and there are Muslims who live in Palestine. And so the Nakbah is not just a crime against the Muslim community of Palestine, but of course a crime against the Palestinian people, and in the broader sense, a crime against humanity. And so the word Nakbah, literally translated as a catastrophe. The catastrophe of the 15th of May 1948. And so in the last few weeks, as correctly as you introduce our program this evening, we have dedicated the Palestinian educational program on a Thursday evening for the last 2-3 weeks, dedicating it to the history of the Nakbah. And so many of the listeners, and tonight for the benefit of the viewers of ITV, correctly as Mr. Jamil reminded everybody that your copies are very much available here at Radio Voice of the Cape. So I am not necessarily going to repeat the facts that we have been dealing with and discussing for the last 2-3 weeks. But to say that we owe it to the Palestinian people this evening. Today, particularly the 14th of May 1948, is the day, of course, that the Zionists declared the independence of what they call the land of Israel. So the 14th of May is known as to be the independence of Israel. But of course, one cannot discuss the question of the independence in isolation of what preceded the 14th of May 1948. And on numerous occasions in the last 2-3 weeks, whether it was on the radio programs or whether it was the Thursday evening Palestinian educational programs, that I remind the community the 10th of March 1948 goes into the history books as to be the serious moment that designers deliberated on what is known nothing else than the military strategy of ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. And I know that I may be challenged and be confronted, and the debate is very wide open for the strong reference to ethnic cleansing. There is no other way to place it, because the subsequent events that followed the deliberations by the Zionists on the 10th of March 1948 is nothing else except clear evidence of ethnic cleansing. Although, Brother Jamil, listeners of Radio Voice of the Cape and viewers of ITV, I must place on record that in terms of the Zionists, they do not refer to it as ethnic cleansing. They rather refer to the process as to be the very transferal of the Palestinian people. Very significantly, one should not lose the opportunity here this evening to say that shockingly, one have to listen to the interpretation that refers to 1948 and the influx of the Jewish community into the land of Palestine, that the early Jewish communities who came were placed in refugee camps, and that the Palestinian people were placed in transferal camps. Now that in itself is a very laughable matter. To now embrace the idea that Palestinian people were placed in transferable camps, to be transferred where? From the land of birth, from the country of their domicile, to be transferred where? No wonder that immediately after the 14th of May 1948, the day of the 15th is none other than Al-Nakbah for the Palestinian people. If one examines the evidence of that, then it is clear that from the 15th of May 1948 onwards, up till today, 6 million Palestinian people continue to find themselves enjoying, or perhaps maybe that would be an insult, suffering the pain of this Nakbah, suffering the pain of dispossession, suffering the pain of displacement, and 6 million Palestinians continue to live under very despicable conditions as refugees in the diaspora. And therefore, we owe it to the Palestinian people here today, as immediately I want to say, we owe it as South Africans, as Muslims, as Christians, as Jews, as the international community, we owe it to recognize that the Jewish people were definitely the victims of the Holocaust. And so similarly tonight, as we recognize that they were the victims of the Holocaust, we are asking, why is it that the world is slow in recognizing that the victims of yesterday seems to be the perpetrators of today, and therefore the chapter of the Palestinian Nakbah is a painful one that lives with the Palestinian people on a day-to-day basis. Tonight, we are not merely here to show solidarity to the Palestinian people, but we are here to expound on the facts. We are here to remind humanity that as humanity, not only as Muslims, as humanity, we have the responsibility to safeguard against the idea that no community will ever have to be placed under such very painful emotional experience, such as the Nakbah and such as the Holocaust. And I am very precise when I draw tonight the parallels between the Holocaust and the Nakbah, because we will be doing an injustice if we do not recognize the pain, the suffering, the brutality, that the Jewish people experienced during the Holocaust. But Palestinians are equally human beings that suffered the pain, that suffered the emotion of the dispossession and the displacement, and in the choice of the Palestinian people, Yawm al-Nakbah, the catastrophe that continues to be experienced by the Palestinian people up to this hour, up to this moment, up to this day.
Well, a guest here in studio, Moulana Ihsaan Hendricks, the Executive Director of the Al-Quds Foundation of South Africa, and Moulana expounding this evening on what tomorrow will be termed Yawm al-Nakbah. And I remember speaking to Moulana last week, and we reflected on it. A bit of a strange coincidence, because for the majority of South Africans, our nightmare also started in 1948. We'll be back after this.
Construction at the much-anticipated Vanguard residential village has commenced. This exciting
How's that going up until now?